Oh dear.
Not gonna work.
Well, you've got something coming up on your computer about Facebook Protect. I don't know what that is.
Okay. Oh, you must be able to do that. It's fine.
Oh. What happened to now it totally went.
What if you go? What happens if you go? Just click on this.
Sorry, guys. I've got to set up Facebook on this computer. Evidently, it's not working. Go ahead. I'll do it for next time.
Okay, great. All right, we're all set then, right?
Yeah.
So welcome to my monthly interview with healthcare professional. This morning I'm interviewing Maureen Hayes. We're going to talk about the truth of ASEA, the truths of ASEA, and really try to get to the bottom of why healthcare professionals are embracing this, both personally and recommending it to friends and family and sometimes to patients. So Maureen, why don't we start by you just kind of tell, a lot of people know you in ASEA, but I don't know if they know you as a doctor so much. So, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of get into, why you took a look at ASEA, that sort of thing.
Sure. I can take you back. I was born as an infant, second child out of 5, grew up mostly on the East Coast, ended up down in Atlanta, Georgia, went to high school and Emory University there. When it was time to go to medical school, though, I interviewed in Charleston, South Carolina, and I don't know if you've ever been there. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I just ended up moving there even before they accepted me into the medical school. And I always wanted to be a surgeon. That's the whole reason that I went to medical school in the first place. I love the idea of being able to peek inside people's bodies and see things that they themselves didn't even know about, right? So cool. And so I actually matched up in Massachusetts for urology. It wasn't something initially that I thought about going into, but I did a rotation basically because I had met the chairman of the department at our university and kind of fell in love. I wanted to be a pediatric urologist, and I went up to University of Massachusetts in Worcester to do that. They had a 7-year program up there. And one of the years you actually went to England and did a pediatric fellowship. A fellowship, for those of you who don't know, is super specializing in something. So we actually did the fellowship in the 7-year residency program. So I went up there, did 2 years of general surgery, 1 year of clinical urology, and then a research year. And during that year, excuse me, I got pregnant and had my son, Christopher. And I was thinking about that this morning. I took a year off and I worked as an ER doc. And Dick, I have the utmost respect for you making that your career. I lasted about 6 months. The stress level of being an ER doc is like nothing you can imagine, you guys. I worked at a small community hospital. I was the only doc on staff, for my shifts. And so people would come rolling in, there'd be people with gunshot wounds, people coding. You're trying to run 2 different codes at a time, on the phone with one, in person with the other, keep compressing, keep doing compressions while you're running to the other room. It was unbelievable. I begged to get back into surgery after that, but ended up making a shift and going into anesthesia. Now, anesthesia is wonderful. You're still working in the surgical arena. You're part of the surgical team, but it's not quite the same as, being part of that, opening up the body and seeing what's going on. And I absolutely loved that because, you guys, if you think about it, maybe you haven't, but anytime we open a body up, or Dick, if it came into your ER and they had opened it up some other way.
Already open, yeah.
Yeah, they were already open. Everything was in the same place. I mean, how can that possibly be? The stomach was where it was supposed to be. The liver was supposed to be there. The intestines were all curled up, beautifully packed in there, just precisely. I mean, it just seemed like a miracle every time I took a look. Anesthesia was wonderful too. You got to use all sorts of different medications. You could render somebody unconscious and pain-free. And, there's a real art to that. But I missed having the camaraderie with my patients or having the relationship. So after I finished my residency in anesthesia, I went on and got a fellowship. I did a fellowship in pain management. So I spent a lot of time helping people, getting to know people, and helping them with a chronic condition and try to get over it. But during this time, I sort of had a revelation. And I was thinking about this because last night on the ASEA 5, we had Dr. Ray Dixon on, who was a chiropractor and a naturopath, who their focus has to do more on prevention and getting to root causes. Whereas in allopathic medicine or traditional Western medicine, we tend to deal with things after the fact, right? Somebody comes into us with a broken bone, of course you need a doctor, or they have some sort of disease going on, or a chronic situation like chronic pain, and I'm trying to help them get a better quality of life. And with that, what we're taught is a lot of different medications, a lot of different procedures, which are great. But I often thought, if it were me, what would I want? I would want to know how to get back to fully functioning, how I could get back to where things were supposed to be and not have to be relying on different medications or different procedures. It's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on things. And so I started on a quest pretty early on in my career, looking for different ways to help people. And so I got certified in acupuncture, which is, just amazing. Eastern medicine is very, very interesting, very spiritual. And I actually was thinking about that this morning, thinking about Dr. Ray last night, thinking about what we were going to be talking about and why every doctor should take a look at this. And so, I studied energy medicine. You and I were both in a company, a Japanese wellness company that had incredible products that were great for my patients, that were non-invasive. They didn't have any side effects to them, just benefits. And it's interesting because people thought I was practicing woo-woo medicine is what they called it, because it was like magnets and infrared, different forms of energy that affected the body in different ways. And, I loved it. I remember I had a resident come up to me and say, I was talking about using magnets or magnetic insoles. And he said, my background is in electrical engineering. And he said, I don't see how you can think that something like this, that is static, that it doesn't move, could actually influence anything in the body. And I was like, well, that's an interesting question. I said, listen, I don't know that much about electrical engineering, but I do know that I can put batteries in my radio and it'll turn on and play music, and they don't move either. And he just turned around and walked off. And I thought, sometimes we just don't understand how things work. So anyway, long story short, I was on a quest. I was at a crossroads in my medical career because I knew what I was doing maybe wasn't the best. It was the best that we had. And of course, we had spent as doctors, we spend so much time, energy, money, emotion, sacrifices doing what we do that it's hard to give up that kind of traditional mindset. But I wanted to do better. That, and I wanted to buy my life back. I wanted more time with my family. I wanted to be able to enjoy the things I wanted to enjoy. And so I was also looking for a way to kind of merge those things together. And I like to say that all roads lead to ASEA. So kind of fills all those boxes.
So you had a pretty varied background. It's interesting that you would mention the two things that you just mentioned that sort of clicked with me was that we do deal with movement. It's just so tiny you can't see it, because the ASEA is all about electrons moving around from one molecule to another. And just because you can't see it, it's happening. That's what keeps us alive, really. And then your mention about ER docs. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, my background is internal medicine. And I'm also an ER doc." And she said, "I don't have the foggiest idea what internal medicine is, but I do, I'm fascinated by the ER doc thing." And I said, "Well, internal medicine is kind of the cerebral area of medicine that, causes you to think about all these things. But the ER is like the wild, wild west of medicine. And it's exciting. It's challenging. I think was what attracted me, because you never know what's going to come through the door next, and you got to take care of it. And so, that's, it was that attitude, I think, that got me to be open-minded to alternatives. What can we do here that could help, give me a tool? And this appeared to be a really cool tool. So how did you become aware? So you've got that background, and then what was going on in your life that got you to take a look at ASEA, this made from saltwater supplement that at the time you and I got involved, there wasn't a lot of science about it. What got you, what got you intrigued enough to try it?
That's a great question. And it's funny because as open as I wasn't open to ASEA. I tried a lot of different things but when it came to salt water from Salt Lake City, honestly, Dick, I thought it sounded ridiculous. I remember, but I've been wrong before. I said I was from Atlanta. I went to the Olympics in 1996, and that's the first place that they started selling bottled water. And I was like, oh my gosh, this will never catch on. Famous last words. I was like, what's next? Bottled air. So, I've learned to be, kind of keep my opinions to myself and try things. But what happened with ASEA, I had actually left anesthesia and I was back in training for something called age management medicine. It's concierge medicine. It's teaching people about diet, exercise, hormonal balance. It allows people to age more gracefully and more optimally, because we all want to live to be 100 years old, but we want to live, playing golf and traveling and hiking mountains and doing all the things that we love. We don't envision ourselves in wheelchairs with somebody pushing us around and wiping, drool and food off of our faces. That's not what we want. We want that quality. We want it to be long, but we want quality as well. And that's what age management does. But during this time, our family was going through a whole lot. My mom had suffered from a life-threatening illness that affected her lungs. She had been treated on the East Coast. They said, you're disease-free, go live your life. During this time, my husband is coughing in the background. My husband, who is also anesthesiologist, he's a pediatric anesthesiologist and stem cell researcher, but he was also in the military, and he was over in Iraq at this time. He was deployed, and I was hearing it. He was running in a sandstorm. They have these sandstorms that blow through that area. And he was running 10 miles with a bunch of other guys, and he had some wheezing going on. And one of the other docs said to him, you need a chest x-ray to see what's going on. He was like, well, I just ran 10 miles in a sandstorm. Of course I'm wheezing.
Right.
The rest of us aren't, go get a chest x-ray. And as you know, Dick, that was a miracle in and of itself, because we think we've got a pass, right? We're not going to get anything. We're doctors. We should have a force field around us. But it turned out he had a huge mass in his chest. And so they sent him home, and, we live in Texas outside of Houston. In Houston is a hospital called MD Anderson. They sent him there. They did their magic, surgery, heavy drugs, radiation, you name it, and they cured him. And we're so blessed and so thankful, grateful. But the treatment scarred his lungs down and caused him to be extremely short of breath, to the point that he had to wear oxygen to watch TV.
Wow.
This is going on. He gets through his treatments. I don't even think it was a month later, my mom called, and her challenge had come back with a vengeance. And I was like, Mom, we got the best hospital here in Houston. Let's bring you over here. Let them take care of you. So we got her started there. My husband had just finished his stuff, but he was suffering. My kid had just started college, or was getting ready to go off to college. Somebody called me about my mom, somebody I'd known from that other company that I didn't know real well, but she said, I know your mom is really sick. I have something that I think might help her. And she sent me the information. And honestly, I saw salt water and I thought, please, I'm a physician. This is my mom. I know how to take care of her. Sorry.
That's fine. This is emotional stuff.
It's been 10 years. But anyway, my mom perished. My mom died 2 months later. Just when it came back with a vengeance. And I've got my own thoughts on all of that. So, I had just deleted all of those emails and all that information that she sent. And so here, 6 months later, I hear Terry Latham, a friend of mine who had been with that other company, had left the company. Now I never had financial success with that company. I was sort of like Mother Teresa with magnets,
Right.
in fact, I let my patients check them out of of the clinic. That's kind of what I was doing with them. I was very altruistic. But Terry Latham, who was a computer background, had been very, very successful with that company, which, that science was pretty heavy. You almost had to have a PhD in magnetics to understand how those things were working.
In physics, I think you had to have a PhD in physics to understand all that stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, it was pretty heavy. So anyway, I called him and I said, I know why I left that company. Why did you leave? And he said, well, I don't know what to tell you, doc. There is a medical breakthrough, a medical science breakthrough that's changing people's lives. And I said, what is it? And when he told me, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Not that stuff. And, I was like, Terry, I live on an island. I'm surrounded by salt water. I don't have to pay anybody for it. We can just go down to the beach, and that was kind of what a lot of people were thinking. Salt water. Yes, we get it. Saline in the body. Our body uses it all the time. But you know what? Our redox molecule, our redox signaling supplement is not salt water. It starts as salt water, but it's infused with energy, which changes the characteristics of it completely. And if you're like, what, how can that work? Think about having a bowl full of eggs and sugar and milk and flour. It's just goop until you put it into the oven and the energy gets in there and bakes it and it comes out as cake. Very different than what you started with. Same thing is true of our product. So anyway, I took a look at the product. Terry didn't know that my husband was struggling. And of course, my kid had gone off to college. And, with everything going on, he started having generalized anxiety and panic attacks and things like that, to the point that I got a call from the school. And, I just went out there. He was going to school in California. So it was, 1,000 miles away. I just went and I withdrew him from all of his classes. I said, I'm going to bring you home. We'll get this sorted out. There was just so much going on in our lives. And so I looked at some of the information. Like you said, it was very scant, but we did have some studies by Dr. David Neiman, who headed or probably still does, the Human Performance Lab at Appalachian State. He had used ASEA, or the redox signaling molecules, on his athletes and showed that when they took this product, they could run further, faster, longer. There was a change in their metabolites. They were actually able to access free fatty acids as fuel, which burned cleaner, caused less lactic acid buildup, better recovery, all sorts of things. And when I was watching it, I thought, okay, does this have to do with oxygenation? Because there was also something showing that their VO2 max was increased. And I thought, well, my husband has a problem with oxygenation. Maybe, what's it going to hurt to try it? It's salt water, we'll be out a few bucks, but we really didn't have too much hope back then. I mean, it seems kind of funny, 2 doctors, and yeah, he's disease-free, but he was completely compromised. This is a guy who used to run marathons, now, I mean, in his mid to late 50s on oxygen. And it's like, what is the rest of our life going to look like? And I tell people, listen, life changes in an instant. You need to be ready for that. You need to dig your well before you're thirsty, not try to scramble and do it afterwards. My shepherd, sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Another dog out there. Yeah, sorry guys. He's gonna carry on for a moment here. Anyway, I'll keep talking. So anyway, I brought Christopher home. We got on the product. I had no expectations and actually was betting against it because I did not want to deal with the fact that my arrogance and ignorance might have cost my mom. Now, I'm not saying that the product would have saved her. I'm not even saying that she would have taken it. She was very, very picky. She would have tasted the pool water, as we like to call it, been like, no, thank you. I laughed because I wanted to take her to the south of Spain to Budwig's clinic there. And when she was reading the brochure and she found out they did coffee enemas, she was like, there's worse things than dying. I was like, Mom, it's coffee. You like coffee. Now I've done coffee enema. And you know what? It's pretty bad. I know there's big fans out there, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. So, you know, but I did feel bad. I did feel bad that I was not open-minded enough to even consider it or give it a chance. And that I just, in my arrogance, made up my own mind that it was ridiculous and without any kind of merit. And so I was kind of betting against it. But the funniest thing happened. I mean, we got started here just 2 ounces twice a day. And all we had back then was the liquid. You know, this is the sports pack. We didn't have the gel or any of the ancillary stuff. So, and we didn't know any better. Everybody was still pretty new, you know, with this. I looked on PubMed, which is, you know, Google for healthcare professionals, and there were about 6,500 references at that time to it. Now, interesting what happened is I'm talking to my sister. Now, understand, a computer sales guy brought it to me, and I'm talking to my sister who knew the name Terry Latham. I don't think she knew him personally. I said, this guy, Terry Latham, is telling me about this stuff called redox signaling molecules. I've never even heard of such a thing. And she said, well, I have. Now, she's not a scientist or doctor. She's a medical editor at my medical school, the Medical University of South Carolina. And I said, well, how have you heard of it? And she said, well, we just got a $10.5 million NIH COBRA grant to study redox signaling in the body for cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative, orthopedics, aging, obesity, diabetes, you name it. And I was like, what? So she sent me the press release, and you can still find it. You can probably, you know, if you're interested, you can find it online. They've changed the name. I think, you know, maybe it's more like reactive oxygen species or something like that. But it said redox signaling in the original one that she sent to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm a physician, so I do have an ego. Here's the computer guy who knows about redox signaling. Here's the medical editor who knows about redox signaling, and I'd never even heard the words. So that caused me to do that deep dive into PubMed and all. Long story short, we got started on the product. I put everybody in the family on the product. I put our dogs on the product. And I had a couple of friends who are joiners. One just signed herself up. You know, she found out I joined. This is excuse me, distributed as a network marketing company. I was not going to do the network marketing part. I told Terry Latham, I'm going to sign up to get the best possible deal, but don't ask me to go to any meetings and don't teach me secret handshakes. I'm not interested. Right. I was like, I just want to see what my husband does and my family does. So anyway, my girlfriend, Sally, signed up, and she called. She's like, I just signed up under you. And I was like, good luck to you. I'm not doing that. And you know, the funny thing about it is she was using it for her mom. Her mom had an amazing change in her vision, which got everybody's attention, including her primary care physician and her home health nurse. And they got signed up. And then a girlfriend of mine, who you may know, she's up in Washington State, Joan Fancher. She had had surgery the year before on her wrist, and a year later was still having excruciating pain. Her hand was swelling. It was turning colors. Her fingers were turning blue at the ends. She couldn't make a fist. She couldn't write with it, and it was her dominant hand, and she was having trouble sleeping at night because of the discomfort. And so here's doctor to nurse. Latham has us taking this stuff. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works, but you've tried everything else. You might as well try it. And if you don't like it, you can get your money back. And frankly, I don't care. 2 weeks later, Latham calls me and says, Joan signed up. I said, Joan who? He said, Joan, your friend up in Seattle with the wrist. I was like, I don't think she would do that. So I called her, and she's like, oh my gosh, I ordered this stuff. I drank it. I soaked my hand in it. We didn't have the gel back then. She said, oh, sorry, excuse me. She said, the swelling in my hand went down. The color is back. I can make a fist. I can write with my hand. I slept through the night. My husband says I haven't looked this good in months. She said, I'm in. She turned around and shared it with another friend. Now, all this is happening, and we haven't had the first thing happen here. So we're kind of like, we think it's a scam. Maybe we can still get our money back. But all of a sudden, people around me are having these experiences. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? You know, can this possibly be? Now, things had changed, but I didn't know to attribute it to ASEA. Like my total cholesterol was totally different. My doctor accused me of sneaking myself onto medications. I was like, no, I didn't do that. You know, so after about 6 weeks, well, first thing that happened is Christopher came bounding into the room one day. He had been suffering from something that they called existential angst, which sounds, you know, kind of out there. But what it is a lot of young, really intelligent, especially males for some reason, kind of get into this doom and gloom thing. Like, why even bother? You know, we're all going to die. You know, is it worth trying? And of course he was seeing, his grandmother passed and his dad was sick, and, people who he thought were the strongest, healthiest people in the world were taken out. And so it really affected him. So we got him on the product with no expectations. Next thing you know, he's like popping into the room. He went from Eeyore to Tigger, and total personality change. And around that same time, I noticed a change for me. I was extremely depressed. I knew why I was depressed. I was really close with my mom. I felt like I had failed her. And, here finally, I felt like I could get that deep breath again, that, colors were brighter, birds were singing. I called the company and I said, do people ever say that they have mood elevation? And they're like, all the time. Well, now, because of the Target lab study that we had a few years back, we know that different hormones are affected, including serotonin levels, right? So people get that sense of well-being. And it's cumulative. Like, initially, if my kid went off for a couple of days, you would kind of get that dark perspective from him. Now, he can, if something happens and he's out of it, or he's traveling and he's without it for a week, it doesn't affect him like it used to. So there's cumulative effects over time with this. But the most amazing thing is my husband started getting his stamina back. He started being able to exercise. He is now, I mean, it's been 10 years, but he's totally off of oxygen. He does use a portable oxygenator when we fly because cabin pressure affects his lungs. But I was just talking on one of the other shows. We were going on the Diamond trip just recently to the Dominican Republic, and we got to the airport, and he had forgotten his POC, his portable oxygen concentrator.
Right.
I was like, should we reschedule? Do you want to go back home? Because it was about an hour and a half drive back home to get it. And he said, no, let's just try without it. Now, y'all, it was a 4.5-hour flight. So I was like, okay, yeah, am I going to be asking them to drop the masks? He did great. He did great over and back. He never had any problem at all. So we were like, wow. Now, that's still a little bit of a safety blanket for us, a security blanket to take with him in case he needs it, because it's scary not to be able to breathe. But he's doing great. He walks several miles a day with our dogs to get them calmed down. So, I'm looking at the time, and gosh, I can talk a lot. But it's amazing. I just want to leave you guys with this, since we're probably wrapping up. I was thinking back to my Eastern medicine training and something called Qi. And what I used to do in the pain clinic is a thing with needles called Ming Men. You can look it up. And what that does is Qi is like our life force. We all know that. We don't really understand redox signaling. And, probably, somebody was talking, Dr. Ray brought up the Krebs cycle last night, which, we all go, oh, please don't go back to the Krebs cycle. But it's extremely important because that's how energy is produced in our cells. And Qi is our life force. So you think about it. You think about, what is redox? What is it that we're doing when we replenish that? It's almost like if we had a gauge, almost like for a battery, or like our fuel tanks. And as doctors, if people could come in and stand on a plate and you could see where they were, how far up charged they were, what was their redox potential, and we could affect that. We could actually pour in the redox and see that change. That would be so incredibly helpful, because you and I both know, and the healthcare professionals who have joined us know, this is foundational. You have to fix this first before you can fix anything else. This is how our cells work. This is how the engine works that drives our vehicle, which is our bodies. So you have to have a working engine, or it doesn't matter what other kind of fuel you put in the tank. So that's where we're working with this. So I've said a lot of stuff. I hope I've come back around to being a part of this has allowed me to be a better doctor. I'm not practicing medicine anymore, but you know what they say, practice makes perfect. Not perfect, not claiming that, but sometimes there is a better way of doing things. And I honestly believe that if we can help people get healthier, we can change healthcare. We can change the health of our country and maybe the health of the world by empowering people to take control. We're fighting a lot of things out there. And this is one thing that you can do for you, your family, the people that you love and care about, that is 100% non-toxic, has no side effects, doesn't come with any black warning boxes, just side benefits. And it's so easy to do. it's where everybody should start. So,
Okay, I think I've got a lot of other questions to ask you, but we're not going to do that today because we're at the bottom of the hour, and I promised we'd only do 30 minutes. So, but thank you very much. I think that's a great note to end on. What I've noticed in interviewing healthcare professionals is almost 100% what gets them convinced about this and excited about learning more is an experience either with themselves or with their family or somebody that they know closely, and they can look them in the eye and they really understand that it was Redox that really helped them to turn the corner on their health. And so if you're a healthcare professional watching this, hopefully you've heard something that might open your mind to looking into this a little deeper, going to the PubMed if you want the science, or more likely just trying this product. Absolutely safe, can't hurt a flea or a person. And the chances are pretty darn good that whatever you're using this for, your body's going to be able to use this as a tool to help it to change dramatically in the right direction. So thanks, Maureen. Thanks for sharing some of your time this morning. I'm going to turn off the recording here. And thanks everybody for watching. This will be available on See United and on redoxmatters.com. And you can share this with friends, family, healthcare professionals, whoever you want that's looking for some more information about how and why healthcare professionals are involved with the ASEA. Thank you very much.